All right, here we go. Here we go. Welcome to the Smart Investing Show Live, where we talk about your financial future and what it takes to make smart real estate investment decisions. I'm your co-host, JC Castillo, founder and managing principal of the Multifamily Property Group. And joining me as always, and for the first time, is my good buddy, the godfather of real estate investing and lending, Mr. Paul Peebles, national underwriter for Old Capital. Paul, you want to say a few things?
Looking forward to spending some time with you, JC, and getting some updated information from one of our dear friends.
Now, Paul, this is the first time that we're sort of doing this show, and some of our listeners might be noticing the background that you got in your little picture there. I don't think you're at your office today, are you?
Not today, JC. I'm on a family vacation out in Hawaii. So my daughter got done with her finals, and so my wife and I jumped out to Kauai. So we're enjoying a much-needed vacation in Kauai. So we're out in Kauai. Isn't this beautiful this morning?
That is completely amazing. I'm wishing I was there myself.
This is not like Texas.
So, Paul, I figured just for a minute or two, we can talk about sort of the genesis of our Smart Investing Show and kind of why we're doing this. Maybe you can kind of give a quick background on sort of what we came up with and why we think this is important and people should tune in.
So one of the things that JC and I kind of came together on is keep people up to date information about what's going on within the industry itself. Our podcast is downloaded 45,000 times a month. And this is an opportunity to get to meet some of the folks either on the podcast or outside the podcast that have some great detailed information. And so JC being an operator and me being a banker, we thought we would introduce you to some of our relationships so they could help your business kind of understand about what's going on. So I appreciate spending some time with you today, JC, and our guest.
Yeah. Well, speaking of our guests, Paul and I always talk quite a bit, and we talk about life, we talk about investing, but mostly we talk about multifamily because that's what we love. And one of the current topics that we love to talk about and that we think these listeners are going to be really into is, there's this whole U.S.-China trade tariff, trade wars happening. They've been happening for a little while, and they're starting to escalate. And we really don't know, none of us know what the future holds for the tariffs. But what we do know is that there absolutely are going to be some impacts that have been felt and that will continue to be felt, maybe in an increasing scale, maybe not, in terms of what it means to the supply materials that we all use in the multifamily space. For example, I do a lot of unit turns, unit upgrades with the hundreds of units that we buy. And so when we're doing an upgrade to the unit, if our supply for things like fixtures, flooring, granite, if those things are going up in price because of the tariffs, that absolutely affects my business. So we thought it'd be really great to bring somebody who's an expert in supply chain management, somebody that knows what's happening with the trade tariffs, has been keeping up with things. We thought it'd be a really cool thing to bring this person on to our very first video podcast and really talk about what these China tariffs are going to do to our business as multifamily investors, multifamily operators, property management companies, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty excited to bring on one of my good friends, Maya Jimenez of Vima Decor. And, I've been working with Maya for many years, and we at our company, the Multifamily Property Group, use Maya's company, Vima Decor, for all of our upgrade materials as we're turning these units at these properties that we purchase and reposition. And I figured that, we'd let sort of Maya tell us a little bit, maybe first about her company, but more importantly, tell us about what these U.S.-China trade tariffs are doing to her business and what it's going to do in terms of impacting the end customers, which are guys like us, right? So Maya, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and maybe a little bit about sort of how Vima came to be and what you guys specialize in.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I'm the owner and manager of Vima Decor, and we are a volume supply company, and we specialize in all the finishes for multifamily renovations and construction. Our products include cabinets, countertops, lighting and plumbing fixtures, hardware, and we also do a lot of sourcing and custom orders for specialty and hard-to-find items for some of our larger customer base.
Well, that's great. Well, Maya, I don't know if our listeners really have a good feel for sort of how amazingly large your company has become. And so you sent me a couple of pretty awesome pictures, and I wanted to share those and let you talk a little bit about the background of these pictures and sort of what they mean to guys like me and guys like us that are doing these multifamily deals. So let me go ahead and share this slide deck with you with a couple of pictures and let you kind of talk over it.
Okay, sure.
All right, here we go.
So that is a picture of the outside of our warehouse in Irving, Texas, where we have over 100,000 square foot warehouse, and that's our primary distribution center. And we ship all of our materials from there nationwide. Currently, Vima has over 500 multifamily accounts that we service, and within a lot of those accounts, there's multiple properties as well. And so that's where the magic happens, where all of our inventory comes in and goes out from.
Yeah,
go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, this is absolutely a large facility. It's one of the largest facilities. I mean, think about a Lowe's or a Home Depot just filled with multifamily fixtures and supplies, everything you can imagine that surrounds a C property to having become a B property, or a B property to try to become an A- property. So this is what she specializes in. So, as people that heavily use updating of properties, Vima is the go-to company for multifamily operators and management companies to use their supplies that they bring in from several different countries to get them in your hands. So I think the quality of the materials is fantastic. I've known Vima for a long period of time. They're my go-to company.
Yep, that's right. So Maya, why don't I just skip through a couple of pictures here? Maybe you can kind of give us a feel for the number of customers and maybe the number of states. I mean, I know you guys service nationwide, and so kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we do service nationwide from our Dallas office, and I mean, I think we have some account and some element of sold to every state, with the exception of Alaska and Hawaii, so the continental U.S. We have the biggest business in Texas because Texas is the biggest and where we're based, but
Yep.
we definitely have a lot of big and high value accounts, throughout the country.
So tell us a little bit about sort of your employee base. We're seeing a couple of pictures here of some folks that work in your warehouse. So tell us a little bit about how you guys are set up with folks that service the customers.
Yes, we have a warehouse that has, the managers and, fully staffed in the warehouse with a couple of our in-house drivers, as well as using almost every third-party freight service to get our, to distribute our materials. And those are actually a couple of our sales reps up in the warehouse.
I actually may know one of these folks.
Yes, I think you might know one pretty well.
Right, let's take a look at some of the materials, because that's always the things that I want to focus in on. So tell us, what is this?
Well, that is a bathroom and a new development project we had done, and it includes a lot of our most popular products, including our espresso cabinets, our square lav sink, which fortunately is not a tariff item yet, and as well as the sinks, the mirrors, the towel bar you kind of see in the corner, the granite countertop, and the bath hardware.
So everything you see there, you can provide.
Except for the plant, yes.
Very good, very good.
The next one, JC.
Yeah.
And this is a kitchen, obviously, and we've supplied the cabinets, countertops, the subway tile backsplash, all the cabinet handles, the undermount sink, and that looks like the majority of what is in the picture, but we also furnished a lot of additional items
So you
for
can
that
supply
project.
everything except for the plant.
Yes.
Very good.
The handles, the pulls on the cabinets are important. That really distinguishes a property. It's a C property to say a B property. The black backsplash makes the sink, the wet areas pop in the kitchen. Super fine look to the property. And that is what updating of a multifamily property from a C to a B looks like, just like this. Absolutely.
I mean, we've got a before and after that Maya was kind enough to send us. So this is kind of the before. And Maya, I'll let you tell people about the after. That's a pretty shocking transformation right there.
Right. Yes, for the after, I think the biggest difference is the shaker style cabinets gives it such a modern, clean look, as well as the granite countertops. And the backsplash is always an easy upgrade that for not a lot of cost can really make your units pop.
Yep. And, you know, just for all you listeners out there, I mean, we've been using Vima product for years and years. And, you know, one of the things that we really like about Vima and the reason we've chosen to partner with them is it's not just about the good pricing that they have, because they bring a lot of stuff at really discounted rates, but their quality is actually what we really love, because when you put these things in, like a good faucet that Vima will provide you, if it has to be repaired or replaced within a couple of years, that's really not such a great time and use of our money. But we found that their products, and our maintenance guys tell us this, that their products are actually very well made, and so they last quite a long time. So this is just an example of sort of the way that we are able to transform these, as Paul mentioned, these B and C class properties. And once we go in and sort of renovate them, they just look night and day different. And we have huge leasing traction with the residents and the prospects when they come through and they see what we're able to achieve and what these units look like after we're done.
All right, looks great. Let's get back on the topic. So, Maya, what are the tariffs going to do for us as operators and owners of multifamily properties? And what can we expect for pricing in the future?
Well, the prices with the 10% tariff that we saw like at the end of last year, we had a little bit more warning for those tariffs. So we were able to stock up our inventory and see where we could absorb some of those costs. But the 25%, even though it was on the table, it did come very abruptly, you know, within like 1 week's notice from deciding it was, from making the decision that it was going to happen to it actually happening. So with that limited warning, you know, everything that was in motion already was going to be tacked on with the 25% tariff. So, and it's not as easy, and it's not, you know, people will not be able to absorb that much of an increase in cost on the vendor side. So they will, and we will have to pass it along to some of it along to our customers.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, this is exactly the type of stuff that we want to talk to you about, Maya. So, you know, we're all doing this stuff, you know, every day, right? We're buying product from you guys.
Right.
We're basing all of our models and our financial models on an assumed cost of unit upgrades, which a lot of it has to do with your fixtures and the supplies that you bring to us.
Right.
So what I really want to know, and I think what our listeners want to know is, and investors that are working with our companies are going to want to know is, what's the bottom line impact to a guy like me, a guy that's putting in these sorts of deals, putting these unit upgrades together? What's going to look like for us in, say, another 3 to 6 months, assuming that the 25% tariffs stay in place?
Well, for Vima, what we did when we heard about the tariffs was we significantly amped up our orders. Like, I just kept ordering and ordering inventory. So those shelves you saw in the warehouse, our warehouse is busting at the seams with materials. And a lot of it is pre-tariff materials. So as we're consuming that, you know, that's helped us delay some of the increases and some of the impact, the fact that we have millions of dollars of inventory already, you know, here. As the items turn over and the tariff inventory is what's stocking our shelves, we'll have to use the judgment calls on how much we have to raise the prices, you know, on a case-by-case basis based on the margins of each item. Some items we'll have to raise, you know, we had to raise because they were very low margin items, and others, you know, we delayed until 25%, you know, having to raise anything. So
if there's a 25% tariff that's happening, I mean, would you be able to give any sort of a guidance on how much of that percentage is going to end up getting passed through on an average, or like, is it 10, 15? I mean, what are people looking at? If they're paying X price today, what are they going to be paying Y price tomorrow?
I think most of the items will not be a full 25% increase. And it really just depends on the item, though. Some items where we, you know, pressed it up a little bit with the 10%, then those might not have to be raised as much with this round, but it will still have to be raised. And so I would just say it depends from item to item. And some of our items, you know, are not on that list yet. And those we're keeping at the same price or even discounting where we can to, you know, help balance out some of the other increased items.
Well, can you go ahead, Paul?
Yeah, you have an office in China still, don't you? Or is that
correct? Yes, we have an office and people on the ground in China.
And then how many out of 100% of all the business you guys do, how much comes out of China? How much comes out of the Philippines, Indonesia, areas of the Pacific, Asian areas?
The majority does come out of China. We have a couple items from South Korea, and some items, will move to Vietnam, and we do have some items that we're buying domestically as well and distributing from our warehouse.
But those items outside of China are not being affected. It's just the items with
Correct.
China are being affected.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, you told me an interesting story about the box cabinets that you guys have, and sort of what's happening with your supply base now that the tariffs are taking effect. Because obviously, cabinets are a pretty good, they're a very expensive piece of our upgrade strategies when we choose to put them in. So maybe you could tell us about that story that you were telling me about, and sort of how that applies to the strategy of where you get boxes, your cabinets.
Yeah, well, cabinets for many years have been an item without really any duty. There was some, a couple of fees, but they didn't have any duty on the materials. So even just the 10% was a big adjustment for the cabinet. However, in addition to the tariffs, they are also facing an anti-dumping investigation, which anti-dumping is when American companies file a suit with I think the U.S. Treasury or Trade Commission, and they say that China's selling at unfair prices to the U.S. and so in addition to the 25% tariff, there will be an anti-dumping fee, which happened with the courts last year, and it was some depending on each vendor in China has to submit to the government, and the fees vary from vendor to vendor, but they were up to 300% anti-dumping fees on the courts.
Wow. And this is specific to cabinets.
What we face with the cabinets, but a lot of that industry does have to move to other countries. All the cabinet manufacturers either have to get out of the cabinet business or move, because so much of their business relies on, their U.S. customer base.
Right. So what sort of advice would you give to people in the multifamily space to sort of try to mitigate as much as they can the impacts of the tariffs moving forward? What should guys like us be doing moving forward to try to get around as much as we can these impacts if they continue to happen?
Well, for right now, while everything is in flux, a lot of people haven't quite adjusted all their prices yet or taken action yet. Things are in flux, so as much forecasting as you could do to get the materials in your own hands before everybody raises their prices, that would be my best advice. Time is money, especially when it comes to a 25% tariff of all Chinese goods.
Okay.
So if you're trying to buy something right now, let's say you're trying to buy a $5 or $6 million property, and your budget's for $400,000 or $500,000, should you, going into the deal as an operator, should you be getting prices for you right now, or should we wait, or what do you recommend to somebody that's looking to buy a property right now?
If you're looking to buy a property right now, I mean, you can always try to get prices, but what we're telling some people who are trying, of course, everybody gave us big orders the same week as the tariffs came in. So if their projects were going right now and they were ready for materials, they could get our current pricing. But when they're doing a project that they don't have a date where they need the delivery, and it just depends on if the tariffs are still in effect. So we just have to, add a footnote where, depending on the tariff prices and where they are, that could affect your pricing.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah. Well, Paul and I would categorize us always as slow and steady, and also glass half full guys, right? Not glass half empty. So what's the upside, if there is any? What's the silver lining on all this tariffs? What can we take away that might be a positive over the long term with these tariffs?
I really don't know. Right now with everything in flux, I don't know what the silver lining will be. Some of the vendors that wanted to open in the U.S., it's still so expensive for them. So we'll just have to see where the dust settles and take things one day at a time.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much, I think, what we've got, Paul. We want to sort of keep this nice and tidy. Is there anything else that you want to add to the mix?
That's it. If people want to get more information from Vima Decor, how do they get a hold of you?
They can go to vimadecor.com, vimadecor.com, and they can reach out to us through the website, and one of our sales reps will respond the same day. So
that's perfect.
That's great.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for getting on the Zoom real quick here. We record this at the end of May, so this tariff information is kind of timely. And
yes, very timely.
And VEMA supplies most of, or a lot of the multifamily space for updating Class C properties to Class B, from B to Class A minus or so. So she's in the thick of things. So Maya, thanks for spending some time with us. Jason, always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate it. We're signing off. Have a good one.
Have a great day.
All right.